Hey guys, Step here from Card Advantage. Just doing a little video about our team sealed pool from this past weekend. And that is a team sealed pool. How it works is you get 12 packs, you open 12 packs and register the cards on a checklist, and then you give that pool back to the judges. They verify, and then you get back a different, possibly the same, but usually a different sealed pool that looks like this when it comes to you. The objective is to build 3 decks of basically the same power level. You don't want to go too low on one deck, so you don't want 2 awesome decks and 1 dud. You want 3 decent decks or 2 awesome decks and 1 decent deck. You know, however you can make it work out. And you have 50 minutes for you and your teammates to work on it. So I'm just gonna curve everything out, or not curve, but color everything out, and be right back. Alright, so here we are, color sorted, and you can see that there are quite a few cards here, lots of cards to look at. So basically, one of us grabbed a stack and started looking through it. We didn't separate the rares first, we did separate the multis, and right here we can see we've got 1 good multi there, another good multi there, 2 of these, so if red-white was a thing, we wanted to look pretty hard at that. Possessed Scob could have been good, Zendikar Incarnate could have been good, but none of these are worth forcing a color pair for, with the exception maybe of these. If there were a bunch of elves, we would find out. So we started just looking kind of at the colors. We very quickly found out that yes, white was a very deep color for us. 2 free blades, a Consul's Lieutenant, you know, Anointer, and Totem Guide Heartbeast, Sentinel of the Watch, War Oracle. You know, these are things that you want to put in a deck if possible. But were there 2 white decks? Was there 1 white deck? No way to find out. Red, well, there's of course a way to find out, no way to know without finding out. Red had a lot, PN, Kieran Nalaar, Boggart Brute, GG, the Scab Clan Berserker, if it worked, Call if there was an aggro deck there, Fiery Impulse is good, Chandra's Ignition could be good, you know, there was a lot. Double Acts, do we have a Nantuko Husk? Who knows. Scout, a bunch of sideboard cards. You know, there's a lot here that looks like it could be good. So there's definitely a red-white, and then even red and white looked like it had enough in it that we could potentially split it up as well. Next we wanted to look at, you know, black, plenty of removal. Languish is definitely a card. Are there elves? Well, 2 shamans. Fetid Imps, Reeve Soul. None of the really good elves. Thornbow Archer. Eh. Green had triple Titanic Growth. Namite of the Masses. Honored Hierarch, unfortunate. Triple Hitchclaw Recluse. There's a couple back here. Which seemed like good sideboard. Triple Rock Maulers, which seemed like it could have been a deck on its own. An Outland Colossus, a Sky Snare Spider, 2 Disciples, a Llanowar Empath. Hey, there's an Elf. Elf gave us Force Mage, Undercity Troll, Elf, Leaf Gilder, Gaia's Revenge, which seemed like it could be strong, and then a bunch of good sideboard. So our green impressed us more than our black, but less than our red and our white. In blue, well, there's not much. A couple of Ringwarden Owls, a bunch of bad counterspells, a couple of Send to Sleeps, a couple of Fairy Miscreants, but not enough to make a deck out of. And then, oh wait, Willbreaker. Well, that's a real card. Double Send to Sleep makes Willbreaker a little stronger. Nivix Barrier with Willbreaker is pretty okay. Double Water Courser. Double Claustrophobia. Blue's looking better. And with the other options available, I mean, we had one blue multi-card, so blue-black looked like the first thing to check, just in case. Blue-black ended up not working out that great. Red-white was definitely a deck first. So Tam started laying out the red stuff that she'd need. I started with green, and then green-white looked like it could have been good with the Citadel Castellan, so I started looking at the other white, but blue-black not looking like a deck. We swapped the black and the white. So went green-black and blue-white, and that's where we ended up finding our decks. I threw in the Shaman of the Pack just to get the 1 life drain, and ended up getting up to 3 life drain off the 2 what are they called? Deathbridge Shamans. So that was pretty sweet. And white-blue ended up looking very, very good with Sentinel and Willbreaker at the top end. But you'll see all that when we curve it out in just a minute. The other thing we looked at briefly was white-black, because we had a Caves, and there just wasn't enough payoff. There were no suppression bonds. Well, there was 1 suppression bonds. Was there even? Having trouble remembering now. Nope. There just weren't any good targets for... What am I even talking about? We didn't have one of the white-black ones. It's early this morning, and all I can really say is that white-black didn't look like a thing. We did have 2 Evolving Wilds, and you'll see what we decide to do with those later. But for right now, let's get to deck building, deck construction. Sorry guys, one last thing I wanted to go over. I forgot to go over the artifacts. And while there wasn't a whole lot that was terribly interesting, there were a few things that ended up getting run. Bonded Construct, 2 of. That seemed pretty good in the aggro plan. Chief of the Foundry seemed pretty good if there were artifact synergies. As it turned out, it got to replace a 23rd card in a different deck instead of going for the synergistic route, and I think that was the smarter plan. But I'll leave that to you to decide. Double Angel's Tomb, and I think they're double Brawler's Plate. Yeah, double Brawler's Plate. I wanted there to be a place for an Angel's Tomb, but there just wasn't. And I wasn't going to push it too hard because, honestly, the decks were better without. The one thing that there was a Sword of the Animist. And I haven't gotten a chance to play with this card yet, so I really wanted to play with it. If it was in the deck that I was playing, I would have been very happy. But it was definitely something that we wanted to have a look at. I didn't think it would fit well in aggro or control, so mid-range was sort of the place. You'll see if it ended up anywhere in a minute. So this is the aforementioned red-white deck. And as you can see, the curve is 1 to 4, which is great. I didn't like that the curve capped at, or maxed at 3. I would have preferred more 2-drops, but you gotta do what you gotta do. And aside from that, more 3-drops meant the Call of the Full Moon was better, because you could go 1, call, 3, or 1, 2, 3, call, and not really have to worry about having another play. There wasn't much as far as reach in this deck. I mean, Pia and Kieran Nallar made for good good reach. The EROS champion with Call of the Full Moon is just a beating. And there's enough, like, Charging Griffin for flying, Skyraker Giant to take out flyers, Fire Fiend Elemental has haste, so it can be a pretty big drop on the turn it comes in. And there's enough, like the Bonded Construct with Fiery Conclusion worked really well. So yeah, this was one of the decks. Sit tight and I will curve out another. Actually, before I do that, I did want to mention that of the 2 Evolving Wilds, we decided to put one with this deck. Reason being, it was a lot of early white, but then immediately needing like double red, so white for Consul's Lieutenant, and then red for Scab Clan. Berserker was a little awkward, so we decided to smooth out the mana here with the Evolving Wilds. Plus, that meant that we were taking one basic out of the deck and being able to filter the deck a little bit so that late game Tams wasn't drawing a lot of land, hopefully. Anyway, that was our reasoning. I'll now curve out the blue-white. So here's the blue-white. It's basically a control deck. There's a lot of early, like, bounce, tap things down, get aggro out of the way, and then the creatures have bigger butts. One's got lifelink to create blockers, Totem Guide Heartbeast in there to go get a Claustrophobia. The payoff is Willbreaker, Sentinel of the Eternal Watch, and these 2, if they were on the battlefield together, that's a 2-card combo. Tap something down, take it with Willbreaker. Tap something down, take it with Willbreaker. And by that point, a lot of decks had used their removal on things like Watercourses. Watercourser also worked really well because you could, make its power bigger. Nivix Barrier was actually really good just for tempo and for making combat math really difficult for the opponent with even Screeching Scab or Watercourser or even Auramancer being able to take out something that it normally wouldn't be able to live through. That was pretty good. Totem Guide Heartbeast was just another solid butt on the field. And in a pinch, this deck got to side into Fairy Mechanist, or Fairy Miscreant, and a Crone Jailer for a little bit more aggro. Maritime Guard was a good sideboard if there was a little too much aggro to deal with, and Enlightened Ascetic was good against both blue and white removal, so Guardians of Meletus came in a couple of times. Ultimately, I think this was the weakest deck, or at least the flimsiest, but it did have some really good games, especially when John had at one point milled his Sentinel off of Screeching Scab, which was not great, but he then got to take his opponent's Sentinel with Willbreaker and Send to Sleep, which then gave him his own combo back again. So that was pretty impressive. Not much more to say, I guess. This deck also got an Evolving Wilds because double white into double blue for Claustrophobia, back into double white for War Oracle was a little hinky, so we decided to put the second Evolving Wilds with this deck, leaving the green-black with just its basic mana, which was fine. So I will curve out the green-black now. So here's the green-black. This is the deck that I was piloting, so I know it the best. It was right where I like to be, which is mid-range, about one turn, half a turn slower than my opponent, which paid off well with bigger, harder to deal with creatures. I decided not to main deck the Gaia's Revenge, although I did bring it in at one point against blue-red, which was really, really good. Basically, how this deck worked was play something every turn, like just keep playing out creatures, and eventually my creatures stay around longer than theirs because they're a little bit bigger. When I did stumble, which happened occasionally, Languish was excellent at bringing me back. Languish is a real card. All creatures get -4/-4 until end of turn. A couple of times I used that to just wipe the board because I had either the Colossus or the Spider in my hand and could play it the next turn, and figured that'd be bigger than anything that my opponent could do, which was really good. Probably my favorite play of the day was actually against John when we were testing. I used Fetid Imp, swung in with it, and then gave it Death Touch and made it fight his Sentinel to take it out. So he got a 2-for-1 for the Sentinel, but I got to get rid of the stupid thing, which I haven't been able to do in League yet. That's the other thing I should probably mention, is that John was basically playing his League deck. The blue-white is very similar to what he's running in our Sealed League at the moment. Because I was in green-black, and I was the only person in either of those colors, I had really good sideboard options. Hitchclaw Recluse, double Mantle of Webs. Triple Hitchclaw Recluse and Mantle of Webs. I brought in the double Hitchclaw a couple of times against flyers, and I brought in Caustic Caterpillars, a couple of times, against double Suppression Bonds, which was really good. Gaia's Revenge, like I said, I brought it in once against blue-red because I had seen Act of Treason, I had seen Bounce Spells, and it seemed better than the Outland Colossus. I almost never saw Rock Smallers all day, which I was a little sad about, but Deadbridge Shaman was really good in the deck. Shaman of the Pack was really good because I had enough elves that it mattered. Farika's Disciple is generally pretty good. Sword of the Animist didn't impress me. I sided it out multiple games. I think I didn't have enough creatures, or had too many non-creature spells. In this deck, it was basically a win more card, where if I got it on something, I got to start filtering land out of my deck, and if I didn't, then it didn't really affect anything. I had one of Cruel Revival and Unholy Hunger, and twice I got to return my only zombie, Fleshbag Marauder, for an extra kill spell. And twice I got 2 life off the Unholy Hunger, which, while it didn't make a lot of difference, it did take me out of burn range one game, which could have been relevant. Anyway, with this deck I went 4-2 with the red-white Tams went 4-2, and with the blue-white, John went 3-2-1 because they decided to draw the game that Tams and I had already won. So 4-2 pretty much across the board, and that was our record. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this, and we'll check out our next crazy video. See you next time.